Hey, welcome back. Business 163, Personal Finance. And now this is video number 2 in our module on taxation. As you can tell from the title slide, the question we're trying to answer in this lecture is, how our taxes are spent. For goodness sake, they collect all these taxes out of my paycheck. I pay property taxes. I'm paying sales tax when I buy stuff. Where does all that money go to? How are our tax dollars being spent? Well, we're going to try and give you at least some basic understanding how the big picture looks like in terms of revenue in, revenue spent. So you can see here in terms of federal tax dollars, all of the federal tax dollars that are collected, and the great majority of that from personal income taxes. You can see here there are some broad categories of federal tax spending. You can see this chart breaks it into what we call mandatory spending and discretionary spending. 62% of the federal budget is mandatory spending. In other words, those dollars have been committed in particular ways for a very long time, and they just simply cannot be changed, right? And so when we lobby our congresswoman or congressman, or when we lobbyists try to get favorable rulings for spending in their particular direction, we're really only talking about that 30% discretionary. The big teal chunk, that 62% of mandatory, is already set for and cannot be changed, at least not by your congressman. Now, what are we talking about in that big 62% chunk? Well, you can see here in this slide, 38% of that mandatory spending is for Social Security, and another 23.5% is for Medicare. Okay, so that's over 50% of that mandatory chunk is already spoken for by Social Security and Medicare, and you can see some of the other categories there as well. All right, so that's all stuff that's sort of already hard-coded in the federal budget. That ain't going to be changed. But when we talk about what can be changed, discretionary spending that Congress will make decisions about, okay, here we go. Look at this. 50% of discretionary spending is national defense. And then you go all the way down to 7.1% for education, training, employment, and social services, another 7% for transportation, 6% for veterans benefits and services. You could sort of see how that all plays out, right? An enormous chunk, 50% is spent on national defense. That is 50% of the discretionary spending portion, right? So this slide sort of just tries to underscore that, right? 60% of the budget is mandatory. It's already committed. It's not going to change. The 30% of what's discretionary, well, that's what we all get riled up about when we say, hey, we got to change how we're spending our tax dollars. It's less than a third of the federal budget that we really could theoretically change, right? And of that 30%, half of that's defense spending, all right? So just sort of gives you an idea how actual federal tax dollars are spent, how they're already committed. Now, when we talk about state taxes, right, here in California, that's about $500 billion, okay? And 2/3 of it goes to education and health and welfare. And so when it comes to state spending, there's an old saying, what does the state spend money on? The state spends to educate and medicate. So that may be a catchy little slogan that helps you remind yourself. The state of California, where's all that money going? Educate and medicate. And then, when we talk about local tax spending, well, there's other categories for that. I think I've got a slide on that. Yeah. So local tax spending typically goes in partnership with the state towards K through 12 education, to support maintenance of parks and recreational districts, and then also for police departments, fire departments, and similar, right? So just very quickly, you sort of see where tax dollars go, all right? Awful lot is collected, awful lot is spent. It takes a fair amount of money to support this great country, as well as the municipalities, the states, and the cities in which we live, and all the services we enjoy, right? Now, this is, of course, just to give you an idea where it goes, but we're not really able to make an enormous amount of change in any of this. At least now you know where the tax dollars go. From here on, really what we're talking about is, in our personal situation, are there things that we can do to change and minimize the amount of taxes we have to pay every single year. That's really where the bulk of this module is going to go. Alrighty, so I hope this is helpful. Quick little video to illustrate where tax dollars are spent. And now we'll see you in the next lecture.